How are we, people? Thank you for joining us. We are here with the Fair One podcast. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to hit you guys with my intro, people. Thank you, people, for joining us. Nathan Gorman is off out of the blocks early, and he says, "Hey, coach, disappointed with the UFC design to go with Hall in the main event, as he's always gun shy and not aggressive enough. Poor matchmaking by the UFC." I was actually very intrigued with that matchup, Nathan. I was pretty impressed because it was a changing of the guard, I believe, and we saw new blood into that division with Sean getting the win and getting a good win too. I think that fight was 50-50 for most people. I don't think anyone would have thought it would happen. Sure, Sean did, but it was quite a beatdown, man. It was quite a fucking beatdown. Like, I don't know. I've seen Hall get knocked out. I've seen Hall get outfought, etc. But I haven't seen him get beat up like that from pillar to post, standing up. I haven't really seen that from anyone. So I was super impressed. I was super impressed with him. Strickland. Now I'm interested to see who does Strickland fight, because I think there's a lot of guys in that division that he beats. That's the truth. I think he can match. I think he'd have problems with Gastelum. I think, but all the way, I can't see him beating Rob or Israel. I can't see him beating either one of them. I could be mistaken. He does have a style that is quite intriguing, man. He has a style that draws people into his game, and he's more or less able to pull that off against everyone. So I don't know, man. I don't see him beating those top two guys. I see him struggling with Gastelum, but then I don't know. You know what I mean? I really don't know. He really impressed me. Christian Lorenz says, "Happy Tuesday, Fab. Tuning in on Tuesday. Thank you, sir." Rob McKenzie says, "Greetings from the frontier, Fab." Greetings, sir. Herbert or before says, "Hey, coach, how are you, my friend?" Herbert or before says, "Do you think that guys can use Muay Thai to stay in shape into older age and no sparring, or is it too hard on the body?" Now, you can use Muay Thai. You can use anything. It just depends on your body as well. If you're not sparring in Muay Thai, which even Muay Thai guys don't really spar Muay Thai like that. If you go to Thailand, they don't beat the fuck out of each other in sparring, because it's just too hardcore. But I think, if you have no pre-existing injuries or you train around those injuries, and you punch and kick the bag and the mitts, and you do all that training, you can do the road running, and then the stand-up grappling component of Muay Thai. It's pretty impressive, man. And you can do variations of it too. You don't have to do the stand-up grappling with the throws, right? Because with the leg entanglements and the throws, that starts to get a little bit hard on your body. But you can still do all the neck wrestling. If you just do the neck wrestling, you'll find that that's incredibly difficult. So I think that's one of the best things you could do, is that kind of neck wrestling plus the pads and whatnot. Yeah, really good. And touch sparring, just moving around, no gloves, just moving around, just touching each other, like boom, 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 and moving. It's incredibly efficient. Ian Mark says, "Good morning, Fab. How is the Aussie gulag?" Yeah, mate. Look, I'm very lucky where I am. To be honest with you, I'm right on the coast. I bumped into my uncle and auntie today, actually, at the Rural Beach. I just took my daughter down there because it's within my 5Ks and it's within their 5Ks. So they're on the other side of it. So I kind of bumped into them and had a little chat with them. And that was good, man, because I hadn't seen, you know, he hadn't seen my family for a bit, so it was good. Nathan Gorman says, "What you make of the woman crying in the backstage after getting the bonus? Really heartbreaking to that these fighters not make decent money." I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I don't know what that is exactly, but um, yeah, I think it's that's why, you know, when we're talking about the judging and that, and people go like, "Oh, it's a massive difference because the judges can have the sway whether this person gets half the money or not or whatever." And I'm like, dude, it's not the judges getting that. The judges only call what they saw of the fight. It shouldn't have that level of impact, you know. Like you watch, say in the basketball, we just watched Australia versus China, and it was whatever, you know. The call was whatever in the women's. I think it was like 76-4 China's way, you know. They won, and it was a close call, you know. Of course, Australia's going to say it was controversial. Of course, China is going to say no, fuck it, it was a good call, regardless. And maybe it was. Who knows? You know, it is what it is. My point of the matter is that whilst it affects them, and it will affect their pay, and let's imagine that was in the NBA, it will affect their pay, but those people are paid. Do you know what I mean? So, it does. You don't have it from that. You want your team to win. You know, of course, I would have preferred the Opals to get the call, but they didn't. So I think that's the um that's the problem. You know what I mean? That's a big fucking issue there. And yeah, like having worked with a lot of fighters and that, I can tell you like the difference that they get from a bonus or something like that is huge. And like they like you know, you should be getting paid. You know that you're not getting bonuses like that are going to make that much of a difference. You know, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to structure it. So yeah, it is a little bit sad. Um, Alex Kohler says, "What's good, Fab? Hope you and Chino are surviving the lockdown." Thank you, sir. Yeah, everything's going good, man. Nathan Gorman says these Dagestanis are going to take over. Hopefully, more stand-up fighters come from there, like Usman. There's a lot of there's a lot of good there's a lot of good fighters from that region, from the Caucasus. Always has been, you know. That this is not new, you know. Like the guys you see in the Olympics, the guys you see, a lot of them are from that area of the Caucasus. Rob McKenzie says, classic shirt, mate. Where did you get it? My friend makes these. My friend, a good friend of mine, makes these. Christian Laurent says the Kiwi David Nyaka lost in the semi-final to an amazing Russian, Gadzi Magomedov. I didn't get to see the fight, but yes, he is unbelievable, Gats, and takes bronze for his effort. That is a stellar performance, bronze at the Olympics. I'm telling you. Pabs MF says, "Hey Fab, can't stick around, but I'll definitely be watching the replay. Have a good day." No, thank you, man. Thank you so much for joining us. JOA says, "Evening, Fabs. Need to know what's for dinner tonight. It's always interesting stuff." I believe my wife is making pasta with turkey mince. So bolognese, but with turkey mince instead of beef. That's what she's making now. And my daughter's going to make a fucking mess of it. But I won't probably be able to eat that tonight because I'm doing this with you guys. And so I had some sushi earlier. Yeah. Alex Collis says, just curious on your thoughts on Lauren Hubbard, the New Zealand trans female powerlifter. Not a beta question. I'm personally against their approach for testosterone tests. Just keen to know your thoughts. I'm not exactly. I don't know enough about the situation to be honest with you. I'm not exactly sure what your question is. Like I don't know. I think I'm not exactly sure, dude. I wouldn't be able to give you a proper answer. I think and I don't think I have enough information. I've got opinions. This is another thing. I've got my opinions on certain things, but and this I think is an important thing for people. I have an opinion, but an opinion without without the proper information is just me sprouting shit. You know what I mean? Whichever way I go on my opinion. And whilst everyone has a right to their opinion, not people have a right not to fucking have to hear it as well. You know. So I don't know enough to give a proper answer because like there's things that I've worked with people that are that are transgender. I've worked with people, and I've actually seen the change. You know, I've had students of mine when I've been teaching at different institutes or whatnot, and and I've watched the whole thing, you know, and I've actually had an opportunity to talk to him, and it was a guy that went to and became a girl. Well, I don't know. I don't mean to offend anyone, right? Of what I'm saying, because I'm just speaking how the how that situation occurred for me, you know, and with my knowledge at the time, you know. So people were gonna, of course, turn around and go, "You're so narrow-minded, Fab." And it's like, dude, you know, I'm only telling you based off my information at the time. But one of the things, like, it's just spun me out. You know, I was watching. He was a dude, and by the end of this 2 years, he was using the women's bathrooms and that. You know, and I was watching him, and I was like, "You're a guy going into women's bathrooms," you know. But then at the same time, and this is why I say to you, I don't know this shit. I don't know. I'm new to this, you know, without just sprouting opinions that you just say whatever and they're hurtful. I'm just telling you facts from what I saw. And then, but then I realized, like, this man he wasn't a man, you know. He was a man 2 years ago, but legit, genuinely, not just in appearance, but like he wasn't a man, like, you know what I mean, like that, like, um, and it was my first real contact, real proper contact with someone uh, going through that. And so I don't know, dude. I really don't know. I tend to think though, and I don't know how many longitudinal studies have been done on this. I would tend to think that in that men, just our skeleton, you know, our 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 physical size and whatnot, and having had testosterone for that long in your system, you would have to have some sort of advantage, you know, over women in combat, collision, or power sports. I would imagine. I mean, I'm not getting on a pulpit here and smashing people. I'm genuinely saying I don't know. And I'm trying not to just give fucking personal opinions, because personal opinions on subjects like this are kind of, you know, fuck. You have your opinion, I have mine. That's a different story. I'm not trying not to give that. I'm just trying to say, you know, what I see. And I tell you something else. I think there's a big problem when we do give our opinion. People don't understand stuff sometimes. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant. My my grandfather, my grandfather was a sheriff back in, like, I don't know. Say my dad was born 1939, so let's say 1950s Uruguay. In a not only in 1950s Uruguay, but in a little town on the border of Brazil. That's where my family's from. Like, literally on the border. Like, you can cross the road. In the sugar cane farming country, and he was a sheriff in this small little country town. And he was like the dude, you know, like, my his brother, so my grand uncle, has a street named after him because he was like the first teacher in that area. Um, Anyways, long story short, one of my aunties, when she was 17, she was talking to a boy in the front yard of the house, and my granddad told her to go inside, right? And she didn't go inside, and he ended up like slapping her and making her go inside. And now when people tell that story, you know, my mum will go, you know, that's horrible. How could you do that? And blah, blah, blah. And I would never do that to my daughter, right? I would never do that to my daughter. But people don't understand, like, 1950s Uruguay, where he was, like, if anyone knows Uruguay, Uruguay's like a tiny country. But and they're a very progressive country, don't get me wrong. But you're talking about sugarcane country. Like, if it's 1950s, it would have been like 1840. If I go back to that town today, it's not 2021, it's 1968. You know what I mean? That they're backwards. You know, they're behind. And my grandfather was a sheriff in this town. And whilst that behavior is insane to me, I would never do that to my daughter. In the context of who he is, how he grew up, the fact that he was a sheriff and all that, I understand why he did that. And why do I say that? Is because, like, when when I'm looking at the whole situation, I've never really been around transgender people. You know what I mean? I've never really been around that. So it makes it real hard for me to answer, um yeah, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, without just giving a personal opinion. And a personal opinion is just like, whatever, dude. It's not. that doesn't mean shit, really. You know what I mean? If we try and be objective and look at facts, I don't know enough about that. Another experience I had with it was when I was at uni, and they brought a person that was undergoing that change as well, and they had a conversation with the group and everything, and I remember there were these girls that in the back of the class, and they were like, those people that are like super accepting of everything, to the point that I'm like, dude, you don't know shit either. Like you don't. And I'm not accept. I've just never met people like that. And also, where I grew up, for those that will know, like I was like born in the '80s, raised in the '90s in Southwest Sydney. And Southwest Sydney in the '90s, it was like a fucking rough area, dude. It wasn't a progressive area. It wasn't like you didn't know gay people, you didn't know it was because not because there weren't any, just because it wasn't like Newtown in the '90s for those people in Sydney that know Sydney. And so it was new to me, man. I'm open to learn. I'm not hating on anyone. I wanted to know. I wanted to learn about this, and I was just listening. And then this one of the girls that was sitting in the back when the person left, and she loved to smash on everyone that wasn't like her, like, you know what I mean? Like, kind of like whatever, hippie free kind of person. And she's having a go at, she just started saying to me, like, and to a few of the other guys that had grown up sort of similar to me, um, why we were so shocked by it. And I was like, dude, I got no problem telling you, I've never met someone, I've never spoken to someone like, and I had a cool conversation with him. Don't get me wrong, that's what the person was there for. And I was like, they came to uni to speak to us about it, not for me to already know. So I'm having a conversation with you. I'm learning. I want to know. And then she was telling me about this and that and blah blah blah. And she made this. She told us that she was when she was at school, it was no big deal. And also you got to understand, if you know the areas, you'll understand. She was no big deal to see gay people in school. And I said to her that didn't exist at our school. That didn't at Southwest Sydney in the mid '90s. It wasn't in like rough areas like Cabramatta, Miller, Ashcroft. It didn't exist because of ignorance, not because I don't know now. I don't know now. But she was saying she was about the same age as me, and then she was telling me that it was normal for her. She'd seen it before, and how open minded she was. And I said to her, "What school? What school did you go to?" She ended up going to some like fucking liar too. By the way, she went to a Catholic school in the same kind of area as me. And I said to her, you're a liar. You're a fucking liar. There's no fucking way that at some Catholic school in Southwest Sydney that you saw homosexual activity like it was rampant. There's no fucking way. So shut the fuck up. Um, Needless to say, we were never friends after that. So no, it's just sorry to go on a rant on that. I actually find it interesting. I just don't know enough about the situation. And like I said, I do imagine that there would have to be an advantage, a quite a big advantage for someone that has been a man their whole life. I don't know. You know what I mean? I really don't know. I'd like to see more longitudinal studies done, and I don't think we will for a while, because that's always been such a taboo subject. And I think that's what makes it difficult when people can't talk about things, or they can't, or we're just limited because of bigoted opinions one way or the other, by the way. Because we don't really get to understand facts, and so it's hard for me to give objective opinion based off facts about something that I really don't know, but I find interesting. Do you know what I mean? I do find it interesting. Thank you, Alex, for bringing that up, man. I really appreciate it, actually. Um, Christian Lorenz says, watched the match earlier. Sage says, laugh out loud. Was just thinking, hope Fab goes on YouTube today. Now just check YouTube. About to make my day, Fab. Thank you, my friend. You don't get the notifications? Hit the like and subscribe and the notification bell. Christian Lorenz says, Fab, Kai Kara France versus Cody No Love got announced for December. Fuck. There's a flyweight fight. Do you have any quick thoughts on that fight? Kai Kara, man, all the way. Big fucking fan of that kid, man. He hit super hard for a flyweight. I think Cody hits hard as well. But I just see Kai as it's his time. He's a younger, meaner version of Cody. I think Cody is Also, Cody's more of a slugger, like he's had a good amateur boxing background. This is the thing with Cody. He's had a good amateur boxing background, but he gets in a slugfest and Kai hits hard at flyweight. And Kai is um I don't know what the weight cut's gonna be like for Cody. I just don't think that Kai is also a tidy striker, and Cody tends to get into slugfests, and I don't think he'll win a slugfest with Kai. Matter of fact, I don't even think Kai will join him in the slugfest. I think Kai is. I think the world of Kai as a fighter. I don't know him as a person. I'd have no know anything, but as a fighter, I think he's fantastic, man. And I think he wins it, man. I think he wins that fight. Honestly, think it's a bad matchup for Cody. I don't think on the ground. I think Kai's better. I think Kai's a good black belt. Um, I think in the exchanges where Cody's dangerous. Cody is very dangerous. I think Kai's better. Jack Borman says, "Hey, Uncle Fab, what's your dream car? Peace out." Um, Thank you very much for the support. My dream car would have to be, I would say, I'm not a car person. I like Mustangs, but I like Mustangs. I don't fucking like I don't really care for cars. I drive a Honda Jazz at the moment. Nathan Gorman says, "Hey, how far do you think Rafael Fiziev can go? I think he can be champ." Yeah, man. Yeah, we're going to see this weekend as well. Um, Sorry, let me just bring up that card. But yeah, I think he can be, but that's a tough division as well to to fight in. You know what I mean? And it's hard because the level of striking and the level of fighting is just getting better and better and better. I was actually let me just sorry, I just want to bring up that card. Let me just bring up that card. Okay. Um Fiziev, yeah, look at lightweight. It's also a tough division, dude. It's a real tough division. He could be champion. He's got the skills to do it. Bobby Green's going to be an interesting fight because Bobby Green can fight above like what he is. Like he's gotten some good decision losses against some good fighters, if you know what I mean. So he can make things ugly for Visiev. He's Bobby Green's very experienced. We're going to see. I think it'll be a good test for Visiev. But I think he's got all the skills to be able to do it. But that's a tough division. That is a real tough division. It's hard to say who's going to be the champion. I don't know by mid next year. You know what I mean in that division. Um, Chris H says, "Hope Snyder, Dake, and Stevenson take gold." Dude, what about Mishan Lopez? My God, Lopez was he man. I think the another dominant performance like that I can think of in my time for Olympic gold medal in Greco-Roman wrestling like that. Obviously Carolyn, um, Karim Ibrahim, is it? What's his name? His surname's Ibrahim, and the Egyptian guy, and he did the backflips. And again, it was against a Georgian, and it was in I want to say Athens, man, when he won that. And it was crazy. He walked that. But Lopez yesterday was ridiculous. Like the guy, it was 10 seconds to go, and the guy's like, "I'm good, man. You do your celebration thing." Christian Lorraine says, "Gads is an amazing fighter who will compete for gold. Nyaka has a unique boxing style as well. He switched stances a lot during the match." Yeah, I didn't get to see it, unfortunately. Aussie Born Kiwi says, "Hey, Fab, just started working in sheet metal business. I'm sneaking a peek before the finish." Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Alex Collar says, "Fair answer regarding the trans athlete, Fab. These days, everyone seems to think their opinion matters. You, however, are so humble to recognize a lack of information to share such opinions. At the same time, I do recognize a difficulty in controversial subjects The woke brigade will come after you for anything. Yeah, man, and you know what? Thank you. I don't know if I'm particularly humble. I think if you say you're humble, I think you're probably not. But yeah, it's like I don't know. Like I said, I don't know enough. I don't know enough about it. I have daughters though. I'll tell you this: I have daughters, and well, I will have daughters. I have a daughter, and I will have a daughter by the end of the year. Hopefully, if everything goes well. But like I don't know how I would feel about them competing in a contact sport. One, I wouldn't want them to do a contact sport anyways, but against someone that was a man. Like, I don't know how I'd feel about that. And people go, well, you're bigoted and blah, 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 blah. And I think, dude, I don't want my fucking daughter to get hurt. It's already dangerous enough. And if like, there's a reason why, like, domestic violence is such a big fucking thing, because I'm 10 times stronger than my wife. And my wife is physically strong. She's actually a physically strong woman, she's very, very strong. But I'm 10 times stronger than her. And I'm not even a particularly fucking strong guy. I'm 41 years old and I'm not training all the time. I'm not athletic. I'm like, it's not me when I was 23. When I was 23, I would say to you, I was very strong and blah, 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 blah. But even right now, I'm way stronger than my wife, And so me hitting her is so the skill, the strength disparity is fucking massive, dude. It's huge. I can't even you can't even comprehend how much stronger you are. So that's why it's such a big thing, and so I don't really get that advantage. Like it's probably about, I would say in general, like if you have a man and a woman, that's why when people are saying like, would Ronda Rousey, for example, have beat the male featherweight champion or bantamweight champion or whatever, she wouldn't have beat the flyweight champion. And it's not being sexist, is because testosterone is a real fucking thing. She wouldn't beat him. The difference is like 30%. You know what I mean? Like at least with a man and a woman, if they're gonna fight, but the difference is that big. So you want the man to be 30% smaller than the woman to give the girl a good run. Generally, when you see the women's 100-meter times, the women's 100-meter times are like 16-year-old boys times, like elite kind of 16-year-old boy times. And again, I'm comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges to bacon and velocity. So I watch women's sport. Great. I'm happy for them. I've got daughters and my daughters are going to do the sport. But if you just look at those numbers like that, it's a fucking insane difference and an insane advantage. So I don't know. I don't like, and I'm happy to say I don't fucking know. I don't know enough about it. From what the stuff that I do know, and I'm not sprouting here my personal belief, there's things that I do know. If someone that's an expert on the subject that's got some longitudinal studies that can say to me, well, look, man, it's actually not that much of an advantage if the change happened X amount of years, I'm willing to listen. But when I look at those times, and I see like 17-year-old boys can run, 17-year-old boys will run sub 1060s. I know that for sure. 17, 18-year-old boys, easy, will run that. And you look, that will probably get you a gold medal nowadays as in the Olympics in 100 meters as a girl. And then you look at the men's 100-meter record, and it's 9.58, and the women's 100-meter record, the Flojo, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it's at least, I would say to you, it'll be close to a full second behind. And that's about 10 meters in a 100-meter race. So you're not, it's fucking huge. It's a huge difference, and no one's come close to that time ever again, with as Flojo's time. So yeah, that's what I think with all of that. It's a bit, yeah, the other thing is like it's scary, man, because being a coach for a long time, like when you get a girl and she's physically strong, like a physically strong woman, that you go, well, fuck, this girl's strong. In a combat collision or lifting sport, she will go very far. Like it's a big fucking difference. Like a strong girl, like a physically strong girl, will go very far against other girls. The same way that if you get a guy coming into in particular combat and lifting sports, and they're strong, because all men generally are strong. That's not the component of fitness that is going to, like, you might be super strong and that stands out. But a man that's really flexible and has really good dexterity, he stands out. And you go, fuck, this guy's special. It's that component of fitness with men that makes a big difference, the dexterity and the ability to move. Whereas when you watch women's MMA, even girls that aren't really that good of fighters still have incredible flexibility and dexterity. But when I coach girls, like, I could tell you right off the bat, this girl's going to be fucking good, simply on the fact that she's strong. She's nowhere near as strong as the boys, but she's still way stronger than the other girls, and it makes such a fucking difference, dude. Such a difference. When you get guys in the class doing BJJ and the guy's flexible, you know this guy's going to have a good guard. You know this already. He's going to have a good guard. He's going to be hard to pass. He's going to be throwing triangles up and blah blah blah. And reality is, he can probably stand up, put his hands on the ground, and his head can touch his legs. And that's flex. A guy, everyone's like, oh fuck, that's flexible for a guy. You go into a yoga class, every girl in the yoga class can do that. It's not that special. But they're the two components of fitness that go. So that's what I'm saying to you. Like, if there's a crossover in strength still as a transgender, not to tell me today the testosterone levels are the same. I know, I don't give a fuck about that. I want to know if there's a strength carryover from the fact that they were men for that long, which I believe there would be, just because of the way you're structured. Then, yeah, I don't know that they should compete like that. I don't think that that's right. Christian Lorenz says, Fab, the last Aussie combat athlete competes in 2 hours from now. Harry Garside. Yeah, I've been kind of following him. Harry Garside will compete in the men's lightweight quarterfinal. Hopefully he can medal as well. Fingers crossed. I like that kid. I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of his fights, but he can box. I've seen a couple of his fights and he can box. Dorian Dark says, did you watch Stranger Things? I did not, my friend. Christian, man, I woke up 15 minutes before this podcast. I just been on the run all day with nothing, didn't do anything amazing. Just my daughter today murdered me. Christian Lorenz says, Fab, as I said last time, AJ McKee reminds me of when Pettis was coming up, but in his own greatness. How impressed with you with his performance, and how high is his ceiling as a fighter? We know when people have performances like that, it's hard to gauge that, because it ended so quick. I mean, he obviously did really well. I was super impressed by him. He's hasn't won 18, 19 fights by accident. So yeah, he's really, really good. I would have liked to have seen that fight go a little longer, just for me to be able to gauge it more. So I couldn't take heaps from that fight, except that he stopped a really, really, really good fighter. Make no mistake, Pitbull's good. He's good. I don't know. Can't tell you his ceiling. He seems very, very talented. I'd love to see cross promotional fights, but I don't think we will. He's really good. Cameroon Saponsky says, Hall always seems so stationary. Do you think that could be down to his training, like a lack of footwork drills, or is it just mental for Hall? It's funny you say that, because when we prepared for him, that was one of the things we knew. Like, people were saying how fast he is and this and that. Hall is fast, but he's fast in a circle, like like his reflexes are real good for him to spin and that, but he doesn't move forward and back that well. Up and down as well, he's fast. Like, he can hit a flying knee from anywhere, but he's not fast from point A to point B. So is it down to his training? I don't know. Mental, you can't really separate the physiological from the psychological, to be honest with you. That's another thing. But another thing that people talk about with Hall is they'll say, oh, if Hall can, depends on which Uriah Hall turns up, blah blah. It's not that, dude. It's not. You know what it is? If the other guy turns up and lets Uriah dictate the pace and dictate the distance, then you're going to see the good Uriah. If the other guy doesn't let him do that, you see the bad Uriah. And people say, it's mental, it's this, it's that. Man, keep it simple. Watch the fight. When he can get his game off, when he's the one that's leading the dance, honestly, it'd be pretty much unbeatable, dude. If you trying to react to what he does, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to keep up with him. But if you don't let him do that, which is hard, easier said than done. But if you don't let him do that, he's a completely different fighter. Why he's like that, it's fucking hard. Like, people throw out blanket statements. It's mental, it's this and that. And people say it with, so, honestly, I listen to people, commentators, whoever, and they say stuff with such vigor and such certainty that, and being involved in stuff, I think, like, how the fuck would you know if it's training? I'm not having a go at you. I'm just saying, how would you know? I always think that with the commentators, you've never spoken to me. You don't know what we did at training. Like, what are you talking about? So it's hard to say, dude, because there's so many factors that go into it. Like, Uriah would have been a gifted guy his whole life, no matter what people say. Oh no, he was small when he was, but this is not new. He didn't become this guy that could knock people out with one shot, be able to spin on a dime, etc., overnight. Like, he's always been that guy. And I imagine that would have been really, really hard to counter in the lower leagues. You know what I mean? So that a lot of the times, it becomes, whilst you have an advantage, it becomes a disadvantage in the long run. And you see that a lot. I'm actually talking with a couple of athletes now, like with this Ask Coach Fab thing that I do, where you have advantages. You're born with certain advantages. You see this all the time. You see kids that are really smart at school, they do really well, but they don't have to try, and that's an advantage, right? But most of us that can get through school with ease, you don't put the next effort in, you know what I mean, to become whatever. You just you just drift through, and that's fine if your goal isn't to be like an engineer or whatever. Your goal is to do something else that doesn't really require it. That's fine. But it happens like all the time. It happens with basketball players. The dudes are 6'10", and if they played in a league where there were no other tall guys and they were tall guys, you see, their skills are underdeveloped. Whereas if they played with a whole bunch of guys that were that tall, then other skills have to come into play, So I think with Uriah Hall, a lot of that would probably come with the fact that he would have got away with a lot as a younger guy. But that's just me guessing. I don't know. Justin says, NFL football almost here, Raider Nation. Christian Laurent laughs, and Voji says, hello from South Africa. Hello, sir. Alex Collar says, mate, Fab, you answered my question before you even got to read the follow-up comments. I like the way you think, mate. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. JLA says, Fab, that lemon lime and bitters got you fired up. That lemon lime, it's actually, the people they're not paying me for this. They should pay me for this, but it's organic lemon lime and bitters kombucha. Very, very nice. The cola flavor is my favorite, but they ran out of it. Nathan Gorman says, early prediction for Oliveira versus Pourier. I don't know, man. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know, because early on, when they're dry, the submission threat is big from Oliveira. And he's crisp with his striking, but Dustin is no slouch. He knows what's going on, and he's such a diesel engine, Dustin. So later in the fight, I think as the fight progresses, it becomes worse and worse and worse for Oliveira. But I will say this: Oliveira's grappling as of late is even better than it was before, and so it's hard. That one's a hard one to gauge. I would have a couple of years ago. I would have said Pourier for sure, but Charles looks like he's really grown into that weight, really grown into that division, really grown into that weight, and so that one's a bit harder to predict. DJ says, have to assume there's advantages from bone density, bone structure, etc.
despite all the rather obvious ones. Love the rants though. Always a lot of knowledge and funny shit. Love the live streams. Thank you, DJ. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, man, I just think I just think like with those conversations like that, I think they're a bit fucking like they're interesting. They're super interesting, dude. Like honestly, like there was a dude that person in my class was in my class. That person was in my class, right, for 2 years, and they started off with, let's say, was start off with the name Fab, and by the end of those 2 years, their name had changed to Carissa, for argument's sake. You know what I mean? And yeah, like they were in my class, man. They were like and it was interesting as well, dude. This person wasn't young. This person wasn't young. This person was, I would want to say to you, easily in their 40s, easily in their 40s, and they were a professional in their career prior to that. So they were like, I don't want to put the profession, but let's say a lawyer. They were a lawyer, high ranking lawyer, like all through their life until they left to do this other course and have this change undergo. And like I just watched the whole thing unfold, you know, and it was interesting, dude. And I don't think like people know enough. I don't think we know enough about it at all, you know, because I don't think anyone would go through the stigma and the shit that that person would have to go through, um, wantingly or knowingly. Like, I don't think they'd want to go through it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would have to be something that's stronger than you. You know, like when people go, "It's a choice." I don't, watching what I've seen. Like, I don't see that like a choice per se. So it's a hard one, man. It's a real hard one, man. And yeah, it's tough, man. But as far like even watching that person, as feminine as you can make them, like their bones and shit were like it was still a man. You know what I mean? The levers, everything would have to be different. It'd have to be an advantage. My ignorant opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert, but I'd also be hesitant to like just because they're a doctor doesn't mean they're going to be right. Like I said, I've coached now. I've coached maybe for 20 years. You know, coached and competed and a whole bunch of shit in combat sports and that and everything. I've been around it for 35 years. You know, since a little kid. And the difference between boys and girls is so big at such a fucking pretty early age too. You know what I mean? Like it's probably earlier than what people say because people say in puberty, but even though the girls are bigger and that when you're about 11, 12, the boys are generally still faster and all of that. You know what I mean? Like generally. Um, but as soon as you hit puberty, it's not even fucking fair. Like as soon as boys have testosterone, it's like one person's on the gear and one person's not. You know, it's fucking incredible. And then it's like you've been roiding for your whole life. It has to have, you know, an advantage. Um, Sage says Fab turns into a convertible Honda Jazz. Let's go. Thank you, sir. Christian Lorenz says, "Is Rob immune to alcoholic beverages, Fab?" I don't know what that means. Andre says, "Fab, were you surprised by how fast McKee picked people apart? I must admit, it shocked me." Man, honestly, that fight went so quick that I can't really say he picked him apart like that. You know, it didn't. Um, I didn't get. You know, you didn't get to see it really. You know, he just it finished quick. So, um, yeah, yeah, that's all I can say on that. Like he caught him real early. I don't think he fully got there to pick him apart. Sage says, make sure to like the video. Yes, please do like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Pip Dennison says, good evening, Hefe. Good evening, sir. Christian Lorenz says, Fab, also UFC 267 just added RDA versus Islam. See, this is the problem with a guy like Islam and Sugar Sean as well. They're in a similar predicament. I haven't seen them do something that I don't think they already can do. So, for example, Islam versus RDA, it doesn't get me super hyped because I don't see Islam losing that fight. I don't see, so when he goes out there and he out wrestles and out grapples RDA, which I believe he will, and I'm a fucking huge fan of RDA. I actually really, really like him. I just don't think he does that well against the wrestlers. He tends because he is a jiu-jitsu guy with some stand up with decent stand up. He's got good stand up, but his thing is whoever is a better wrestler against RDA will probably win if they can impose that, because his game is based on his ability also to wrestle and he's got very, very good jiu-jitsu. So when he gets on top, etc., etc., he can really do some damage. And then he's got some really nice stand-up behind it. But the link there's the wrestling. So he doesn't do that well against the better wrestlers in the divisions. So I don't see a situation where RDA beats Islam, you know. I do think Islam will get it to the ground. I do think Islam will get the better of him on the ground, although RDA's jiu-jitsu is really, really good. It's harder in MMA to deal with that from the bottom, you know, and RDA is not like a bottom guy jiu-jitsu guy. That's the thing. He's like a wrestler jiu-jitsu guy. He's got a good guard and everything, don't get me wrong, but that's his thing, you know. And so he's not like Charles Oliveira. That's not his game, you know. So when he fights a good wrestler and the wrestler can put him on his back, it becomes a problem. That's where the problem starts. You saw when he fought Nate Diaz. That's why he did well against Nate Diaz, because he's gonna win the wrestling exchanges against Diaz. That's why he was able to win. Christian Lorenz says UFC 267 holds up. Is stacked with Jan versus Glover, Jan versus Glover, Jan versus Sterling, RDA versus Islam, Bam Bam versus Harris, and Hamzat return. That's going to be a crazy card. Nick Howe says, same with tennis. The top females train with the best junior boys for practice. Yeah. Tennis, dude, there's another one. Like, I don't know if you guys remember when Serena and Venus, I never saw the match, but I read about it. And maybe it wasn't even true. Maybe it was a folktale, but I've read about it a few times from a few different sources. They played a guy that was ranked number like 200th or something. You know, when people talk about can a girl beat a guy, and it's got to be all things being equal. I'm not talking about fucking Amanda Nunes fighting my accountant. I'm not talking about, she'll fucking kill him. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Amanda Nunes fighting fucking Sterling, Aljamain Sterling. It will be a massacre, dude. It will be a fucking massacre. It's not even close. You see that, like when the Williams sisters played that dude in tennis in the and the guy was ranked like 200th or something. The guy smoked him, like fucking smoked him back to back. It's not even a match, you know. And that's the thing that people don't get. That's why the difference is so huge. And when I say this, I am a father of daughters. You know what I mean? So I don't hate women or fucking anything like that. It's got nothing to do with it. But the difference is fucking huge. It's not even fucking close, dude. And I'm saying this as a coach in combat sports for years and years and years, man. Like, it's not even close, dude. It's not even close. Like, I remember like coaching girls that went to Commonwealth Games for wrestling, and you know, girls that grappled and everything. And it got to a point even a couple of years ago where I couldn't really roll anymore because my knee's so shot. But I could roll with them. I could still roll with them like pretty, like I could still roll with them, no problem, because they weren't like thing. And people say, oh yeah, but if you roll with the top female jiu-jitsu girl, I bet you she'll tap you. And I'm like, yeah, fucking, if I play tennis versus fucking Serena Williams, she's gonna fucking smash me. What's the point? What's your fucking point? You know what I mean? What's the fucking point? I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about comparing apples to apples, you know? Gus Hodges says, where does Uriah Hall go from here? He's cracked the top 10 in the division multiple times now, but seems to get greatly outclassed when facing the more elite fighters in the division. I think Uriah Hall is going to stay in that kind of range there in the top 15 for a long time. you know, because he's still going to beat guys. You know what I mean? I think he'll fight. I'm not going to say indefinitely, but he'll fight for a while, man. He's still got a lot of fight left in him. I don't think he'll make a run for the title, and I think he'll be happy to just get in there and fight. You know, the problem is, dude, that when you're there, he's going to get older, and the new young guys coming through, they stay the same age. You know what I mean? They keep coming through at 23, 24, 25, and he's just going to keep getting older and older and older. So that's what's going to happen. But I do think he's going to stay in there for a few more fights. Christian Lorenz says, would still love to see the intergender match between Cejudo and Valentina for the intergender UFC belt. From Christian Lorenz. Dude, like, it wouldn't even be close. It would not even be close. Stainless Stove says, Fab, good to see you yet again. Is this shirt meant to be irony? My mate made this shirt, man. My mate made the shirt. It's I think it's his little clothing brand, and I think it's what he and his daughters call each other. Stainless Stove, mullet. Yeah, mullet is a fish. Nathan Gorman says, Volk will fear taking Ortega down because of BJJ. I see this being more of a stand-up fight. When Volk's fought Max, he could take him down and secure the round, but won't do that against Ortega. I see Ortega winning. Dude, fucking Volkanovski, like I've said to you before, I'm not going to get into it too much because I've worked with him and thing, but Volkanovski is not a wrestler that can strike. You know, he's an actual striker. You know what I mean? And if I was to pick his best part of his game, it's actually his striking. But the thing is that not many people could stop his takedowns, and when they couldn't stop his takedowns and he'd get on top, he's a fucking nuggety little dude. So he doesn't need to take Ortega to the ground. It's Ortega that needs to take him to the ground, and I don't see Ortega being able to do that. I don't see Ortega out striking Alex. He might catch him, you know what I mean? But Alex is smarter than people give him credit for, and he's a lot better striker than people give him credit for. A lot better. I see Alex winning that, to be honest with you. Darren says, Fab, you need to watch The Last Mercenary. Okay, I'll try. The conscientious objector says, Coach, is Lewis going to catch Garni, or will Garni dance around him for 5 rounds? Fuck, if I knew that, I'd bet the house on it. You know, I don't know. That one's going to be real difficult one to pick, you know, because they both can hit hard. You know, Garni can hit hard too. So I don't know. But the problem is Derek Lewis can knock you out at any given time, you know, at any given time. So I don't know. Stainless Stove says, and Nathan Gorman, I don't know. Volk seems to be incredibly strong for that division. He is. He's an incredibly strong guy. Incredibly strong. His head is enormous. It is. And for a long time, he used mostly wrestling. I would not be surprised if Volk took him down. If he takes him down, it'll be against the cage, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And then the jiu-jitsu changes a lot there. But again, it seemed like that because he was successful with that facet of his game, which was the wrestling. But I think he's a better kickboxer than he is wrestler. Christian Lorenz says, Nunes versus Moreno. I had Moreno by overhand right via KO. Maybe. Nicholas Bright says, on that men versus women subject, there's a video of Rousey and Mousasi grappling, and she can barely hold on to him, and he looks like he's barely awake. Dude, it wouldn't. Mousasi's a fucking good grappler, dude. He's a fucking giant guy. Yeah, that one wouldn't. Mousasi, Shabazian, when he was a kid, would grapple a lot with Rousey. There's footage of Rousey when she's wrestling like 16-year-old boys and going backwards and forwards. You know what I mean? Like that'd be the level. You can't even. Her and Mousasi would be on a fucking different thing. It makes me laugh, like when people talk about it and they're like, Ronda could beat the guys and that, and I think, like, dude, fuck, man, come on, man. Like, Ronda wouldn't be able to beat Nunes. Do you know what I mean? But she wouldn't be able to beat the guys in like even guys on the regional circuit that you never heard of. that can fight, that train and can fight, she wouldn't be able to beat them. Like, it wouldn't even be fucking close. It would not be close. Um, like, I don't know, dude. Like, I can't explain it to people. I've worked with so many women athletes, that are incredible athletes, like incredible athletes, but the strength difference with men and girls, it's fucking completely different. To like to a point, like I remember doing Olympic lifting for a little bit, and I'm terrible at it, but I just wanted to do it, and I actually went in a competition of it. Terrible, it was fucking terrible. But I remember lifting the same as some of the girls, right? And thinking like, because I wasn't good at it, I was always like, I'm gonna try and lift the same as these girls. These girls would still outlift me. They would outlift me. I got no problem telling you this. Like, they would outlift me, and some of them were smaller than me. Easily, fucking easily outlift me. But I thought, hey man, I'm within these kilogram ranges, so I'm doing okay. But then guys, like kids, boys that were 16, 17 years old were lifting way more than me, way more than them. So it's a big difference, man. Give me 1 second, guys. Um, yeah, so that's that. The conscientious objector says Volko is going to put such a beating on Ortega. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. If I did, I would just bet the house on it, and I would have invested in Microsoft. But having said that, like I said, I don't see Ortega outboxing out kickboxing Volkanovski. Salah says, "Hey Fab, do you bet on MMA? I do not. If so, any picks you have for this weekend that you think are a lock?" I don't, man. I don't bet as a general rule of thumb. Like, I just don't gamble. I'm a very boring person. I don't gamble. Um, but yeah, I just I no, I don't know, man. Locks are hard, man, because it's MMA. At the end of the day, anyone can walk into some shots. I have in the past put some money down, and I lost. I fucking lost, and and it was a lock, dude. Like, I trained with both the guys. I trained with both guys, and the guy fucking. I thought this is probably gonna be first death in MMA, and the guy runs into a fucking right hand, like boom, right on the chin, gets slept. So I I don't bet, you know, and it was such a lock. I'm telling you, that day, that fight should have been such a fucking lock, because the guy the guy that got knocked out was so much better than this other guy. And I trained with both of them. I trained with both of them. And one guy was like, man, he was so much better. Like, it was such a lock. And two times this guy did it to me. This guy, another time he fought another dude that, again, my mate had trained with him, and he said to me, so and so's fighting so and so. And I said, he's got to beat him. And he goes, yeah, this guy's got, for sure. He had trained with them both as well. He goes, for sure. He goes, for sure. This other guy who should never have beat him went up a weight division. And dude, I didn't have much money back then. Like, not that I have any now, but I didn't have any then. And I put $1,000 on this fucking guy, and he beat him. And he fucking beat him. So I don't bet. Um, let me see. Oh, Stainless Stove says, Fab, no, mullet on your shirt. Yeah, that's the my mate's brand. And that's what he calls him and his daughters, I think. Oh, okay. The mullet on my shirt and I'm bald. The irony, I get it. Thank you. The conscientious objector says, Coach, would AJ McKee have a better chance against Volker than Ortega? Because I think Volker will beat him everywhere. I don't know, man, because McKee, it's hard without seeing them against the same competition, right? McKee looks very, very good. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'd like to see McKee versus some of the same competition as Volkanovski, but you won't, because those guys are older now too, and McKee's a young guy. So I don't know. I don't know who wins that one there. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know. I don't know. That one is more I don't know than Ortega. Like I would be comfortable in picking Volkanovski, but Ortega could beat him. That's what because there's very clear paths with Ortega and Volkanovski. That doesn't mean that Ortega can't win. That doesn't mean that Ortega can't hit Volkanovski with some big shots and put him down. He can. He could, but I don't think he will. I don't know that he'll get in a position to be able to use his jiu-jitsu properly against Volkanovski. Um, that's why I think that Ortega just doesn't match up as well with Volk. Whereas McGee is more of an anomaly. I don't really know exactly where that goes. Nathan Gorman says, when Brett asked Gaethje about how it was like fighting Khabib, he said, no one under 185 can beat him. Gaethje trains with Kamaru. Is he indirectly telling us Khabib can beat Usman? I mean, he might have an opinion, but that doesn't mean that he would. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. The conscientious objector says, Sean, till the death, Strickland. Nathan Gorman says, I'm disappointed in Khabib not moving up. I felt like he could take on Usman or Colby and beat them. I don't see Khabib getting ragdolled. RDA took Colby down a few times in their fight, and Khabib should believe in himself. I'm sure Khabib believes in himself, mate. I just think that he took the and I think it's a very real thing. I don't think that he would that where he's at and who he is, um, and having that undefeated legacy, beating everyone they put in front of him, fuck man, that's pretty impressive, I think there's a reality where he doesn't. I'm not saying he couldn't beat Usman or Colby or anyone like that. I'm not saying he couldn't. He'd definitely be in there with a good fucking shot. But at welterweight, he loses a lot of the mechanical advantages that he does have as a lightweight. That's why there are weight divisions. Could he beat him? Maybe, but at welterweight, he's also a lightweight. Not only does he have the skills that he has, but he's also bigger than a lot of the other guys. Um, okay. Hawk Hitter says, if we had the more famous coaches fight each other, who would be some of the best right now? Firas, Kavanagh, Dewey, Cox, so on. Well, first and foremost, I'm not a famous coach by any fucking stretch of the imagination. So I already don't fit in that. Two, I can't fight. So that's two things there that I'm out of there. I don't know, man, because there's a lot of tough dudes, man. There's a lot of tough dudes around. And out of whoever you deem famous, I don't know, but I'd imagine it'd be one of the bigger guys. Dewey looks like a fucking scary guy. I know Kavanagh. I've trained with Kavanagh. Kavanagh's highly skilled, man. He's very skilled. Firas is highly skilled. Eugene fights or did fight. I think he's had 40 fights or something. But dude, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of dudes that aren't that famous that can fucking fight. Like heaps, man. So fucking many like coaches we're talking about now. There's a lot of coaches, dude, that train some fucking Russian fighter. You don't know the coach. You don't know his name. He's never been famous, so to speak. And the dude was fucking 3 times combat Sambo fucking champion or something. You know what I mean? And you don't know who he is, and he would beat the fuck out of everyone. You know what I mean? So you don't know. You don't know Pamplona. He's a fucking dangerous man. They'll probably beat the shit out of a lot of people. So I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. And coaches by the definition, they're like it's like saying out of all the accountants, who would win a fight? Like it's a skill that one thing doesn't. It's not a mutually inclusive skill. Like you don't have to be a good fighter to be a good coach, or be a good fighter to be a good accountant. Stainless Stove says, I like you, Fab. You're the daddest podcaster. I appreciate it, sir. I appreciate it. Marko Milesevic says, shut up, fair one. You know who's the GOAT, who's the next 205 champ Alexander Rakic. Okay, but I don't know why you'd come on my podcast and tell me to shut up. But fair enough. The conscientious objector says Khabib always used to fight at 170 before he joined the UFC. He almost dies making 155. And there's a reason for that. Do you know what I mean? There is a reason for that. There is the mechanical advantage of fighting at 155, and he obviously knows this. Stainless Stove says, I don't see Rakic beating Jaron. No, me neither. Not at this stage necessarily. Okay. Marco, you can just be normal and just thing. Otherwise, we have to block you. Stainless Stove says, maybe, but Rakic coming out on top of John Glover and that dude that dude that KO'd Reyes. It'll be a tough fight for Rakic. I think any of those guys in that top 4 or 5. Stainless Stove says that's going to be hard. Jacob says, Fab, can you explain what it's like to get rocked in a fight and to try and recover if you have any insight? I have been rocked. It's the thing is, man, like I haven't I'm trying to give like because me being rocked might be different to you being rocked as well, and my experience in being rocked might be different to a lot of other experiences in being rocked. But it's bad because sometimes like you can get hit and your motor skills aren't good. There's a lot of different ways, man. You can get rocked. You can get rocked and you're okay, but your motor skills are not. And for me, a couple of times, like you're kind of fuzzy. You don't even know exactly where things are. And guys that I've worked with in collision sports, in MMA, it's different for all of them, man. There's guys that I've worked with in collision sports like rugby league that will get hit, and not remember half the game, and they've been rocked and like they're on camera and you blah blah blah, and people might ask them if they're okay, but they don't remember the rest of the game, And a friend of mine that plays first grade rugby league that I'm working with at the moment, he's been knocked out to the point he's been rocked actually and kept playing on, and then one of the coaches noticed that he wasn't he was nowhere near right, and he was in the sheds, and then he thought that he'd been showered and everything, and he changed, and he was in the sheds waiting to go home, but when he got there, like he just sort of came to, and he started taking his stuff off to get ready to play, but the game had already finished. And then his family came in and he looked at them and said, like, what are you doing in the dressing sheds and blah, 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 blah. And they said to him, man, the game's over, dude. The game's over. You got rocked like real bad. He never went out. He never went out of sleep. And that's what happened to him. That happened this year, actually. And he didn't get knocked out or anything like that. He just took a massive hit, and he thought he was it was pretty bad. He started undressing in the sheds after he'd had a shower and everything. He couldn't remember any of it. Now it's starting to come back to him. For me, just a few times where I've been hit and like my lights went, but it wasn't too bad. Like where I couldn't focus on where I was, but it wasn't pleasant. There's other in other situations that when I've spoken to people that've been hit, and like there's only so many times you get hit like that, and it cuts through the adrenaline, and you start to feel all the other shots that are coming through. I think we were speaking about like the Rory McDonald's fight versus Lawler, so there's a lot of different things happen, when you get rocked. And it depends. Some people can shake it off and they're all right, but it's different for everyone. It depends where and how you get hit and by who and what happens subsequently. Marco says, what you saying, brother? Glover is sacked. He lucky he beat Santos. Darren Treved says, Volker doesn't get enough credit. Max Holloway was a GOAT not long ago. Yeah, fuck, Max might still be the GOAT in that division still. I don't think there's been that many defenses by Volkanovski. sorry, Marco, man. Like, we're happy to have you comment and that, but the trolling and shit, it's not really down, man. So let's see. The conscientious objector, Rakic versus Jiri is the fight to make. That would be an interesting fight. That would be a very, very good fight. I'd be down for that. Herbert of 4 says, which to train, gi or no gi BJJ for longevity? Have you trained one or the other before? I think it just depends what you like, If you like, some people like gi, some people don't like gi. It's much of a muchness there. I personally don't like training the gi as much. I find for me, but I wrestled before and I like no gi more. You know what I mean? Guys that like gi will swear by it and they love it and they'll say that there's a lot more control and this and that. Of course, there's a lot more control for you if you always grappled in a gi. You know what I mean? If you don't grapple in a gi, then you don't have the same level of control in the gi, and the gi kind of gets in the way for you. So I think that's a big one. I think it just completely depends up to you, and what your background is. For me, I like BJJ without a gi. I like grappling without a gi. Nicholas Bright says Jack Slack likes to joke that Khabib already lost to a welterweight in Gleason Tibau. Look, there's a good example, and I was going to bring that up earlier when somebody was asking, like, there's a big, strong dude, that can wrestle, can do jiu-jitsu, and Khabib struggled a lot in that fight, a lot, and arguably the decision could have gone the other way. So yeah, I don't necessarily think Khabib would lose to Usman necessarily, but he loses a lot of the mechanical advantages. The conscientious objector says Jiri beats Rakic in my opinion. Possibly. I think so. I'd probably have to favor him. The conscientious objector says, did you see Khabib's last 2 weigh-ins? Very, very shady. I did not, but I wouldn't be surprised that I've been at weigh-ins, man, so I know what happens. Koznoski says, you think judges should have earplugs while judging? That's an interesting one because it does affect the crowd does affect, and it's something that people don't get. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I know that the crowd affects the judges, that for sure. They're only human, so yeah, I think it does affect them. Conscientious objector says, I don't think he can make 55 anymore, and that's why he retired. Maybe. Bo says, love the channel, bro. No, thank you, man. And please hit the like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. Hawk says, what do you think of Jiri? I think he can clearly beat everyone, but he has too many holes to be long-lasting champion. I don't know, man. I don't know, because when I saw him fight Dom, that was like, man, he got hit with the same shots. Like, Dom was hitting him and he was hitting Dom, but he was really hurting Dom, and Dom has like nice, straight, crisp punches, and he couldn't really hang with Jiri, So again, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Jiri is a scary motherfucker, dude. That's the only assessment I can give you on him at this point. Sorry, guys, I might skip a couple. Sorry, so I just skipped a few just to kind of get to where we were. Bo says, Coach Fab, can I, Bo from Canada, get a shout out, please? Of course you can, man. Shout out to Bo from Canada, my friend. Thank you for being on here and thank you for supporting. Stainless Stove says, Fab, I'm in year 12 in Hobart. I don't understand why martial arts has never been encouraged during school and seems like that in Australia. I've started Muay Thai at PCYC and the benefits have made me, I'm assuming you're going to, so much more confident as a person. You have experience in education. Why isn't martial arts a part of school in Australia? I honestly think is probably I don't know. I really don't know, because like, you could have martial arts in the school system, it'd be fucking way safer than rugby league and rugby union. So I think it's a lot of it's a cultural thing. Like, for whatever reason, we've deemed rugby league and rugby union as okay and not, you know, other forms of martial arts, you know? So, I mean, forms of martial art, because the rugby league and rugby union are fucking like they're ridiculously dangerous sports. So, and I don't know, and I think because of that as well, I think a lot of it might be like the fear of getting sued and the fear of saying like 'cause people are assholes, dude, man. People are gonna say, "Can you believe they had judo in the school system and so broke his leg or whatever?" You have so much rugby league and rugby union in schools and AFL in schools in Australia that when people hurt themselves, it like people don't that it doesn't carry the same people get hurt in grappling or wrestling or whatever, and it's a big fucking thing because it just isn't the numbers. If yeah, I think they're scared of that, in my opinion. You know. Um, Also, I love Hobart, my friend. Fuck, it's a beautiful place. I'm jealous. I would love to go to Hobart, but my wife wouldn't move. No way. Jacob Birdsong says, "Thanks for answering my question and telling their stories. It's really crazy what collision athletes put themselves through. It seems that most fans have no idea what it's like to eat shots." No, and that's why, like, when people are criticizing fighters as well, it's you got to understand you don't know what happened in a fight for the fight. They go, "Oh, he didn't do this or he didn't do that." You don't know what happened in the fight. Like, you don't know if the guy there was an exchange 5 minutes ago and the guy got clipped, and that fucking put you in a situation where you don't want to engage because you felt that person's power, or he hit you and you know that you're not okay. You know you're not all right. You know, and that's why as well. A lot of the times that people go, "Oh, so and so said after the fight," you don't know what they're going to say. You don't know if they're going to say the truth. You don't know if they want to say the truth. You don't know if they're going to say, "Hey, you know what?" Whatever. They're not necessarily going to say it. Um, it's fucking scary, dude. Like, it's real scary, and when you see people that have eaten too many shots, it's fucking scary. Stainless Stove says, "Why aren't kids encouraged to do combat sports? It seems like Australia, not like before UFC, I expect, but seems like the mainstream view, including schools, still sees martial arts as a blood sport." They do see it as a blood sport, but there's always been martial arts. You know, people do martial arts. They've always done it. Um, I don't think I think that people, again, like, if you don't know, like, people will just say what it is. I also think like, say for example, people are so concerned about what you're meant to say. Like, so say for example, if you don't feel so if you feel comfortable doing this is fine. If you don't, this is fine as well. Like, if you feel comfortable with your wife having a male friend and going and having dinner with him and hanging out, watching a movie with him and that, if you feel comfortable with that and you're cool with that, that's your business. That's fine. If you don't and you say, "No, I'm jealous of that shit. I don't like that shit. I don't want that shit," but that's cool as well. You know, people then start this whole thing. Well, do you trust her? You don't. It doesn't fucking matter, dude. Like, you're okay to have either one of those views. You're fucking fine, you know? You don't have to be cool with either one of those things. Um, and you don't have to like combat sports. It doesn't make you more intelligent or more cultured or more anything than somebody that does. Do you know what I mean? If that person likes combat sports and that's how they're wired and they like it, it doesn't make them a fucking savage. It's not binary, you know. And I think people are so caught up with that, you know. Like, if say if somebody said, "Oh, are you, you know, like whatever," like my first example before, you can just say, "Oh, fuck, dude, I don't want it. I don't like it. That's it." And end of fucking discussion. I don't like it. That's why, it doesn't work that way. And that's it. End of discussion. So I think there's also a big push on that as well, you know, and also mainstream, including the mainstream, what they see in the UFC. I can't really blame them, dude, because you've got guys on there insulting each other's mums. You've got people fucking swearing over about people's families, all sorts of shit. You know what I mean? Like, all sorts of stupid shit. And so I don't like. What are you going to blame the public for not being? Dude, I don't watch that shit anymore. I only watch the fights because that stuff disgusts me. And So you can't turn around and be like, no, the fighters are actually good people, because and honestly, a lot of them aren't, because they hurt people for a fucking living, and that's true as well. Now, I'm not saying this from a high and mighty perspective, because I train these people. You know what I mean? So I know that I'm not fucking 100% either. But that's being real. You know what I mean? Don't bullshit and say, like, some of these guys are not nice people. This is the truth. A lot of these guys are not nice people. Just because people pretend and they carry on and da 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 da, a lot of these guys aren't. They hurt people for a living. So that's understandable why mainstream is not cool with it. That's not the same as you. Why can't you practice martial arts? It's a different story. But I don't think the UFC does themselves any favor with it. Any favors with it. Mashari says, "Hey, Coach Fab, I recently sparred with a childhood friend who used to take boxing quite seriously. Now a significant gap in skill is between us, and he hasn't spoken to me since we sparred. What do you think about egos in sparring?" I think you have to understand, like, again, that analogy I just gave a second ago. You have to understand, when you're sparring, there's going, like, people say there's not going to be any. You're human beings, dude. You want to leave your ego aside. You want to be aware that you shouldn't have that ego, but no one likes to get pasted, dude. So if you pasted your mate, he's not going to like it. You know what I mean? Um, and you're not going to sit there and let him paste you. It's simple. I think with sparring, my view on sparring, because there's going to be egos, is you have to ask yourself, why are you sparring? How hard are you sparring? I'm not categorically against hard sparring in the right set of circumstances, but if I'm training an athlete, I don't like them sparring just for the fucking sake of it. My thing is, you should be building your skills, and then when you go to spar, the spar should be as close, like proper sparring should be as close to a real fight as possible. So get yourself in an environment that can simulate an octagon, get a few people around that are going to watch, and it's you in there, just you and another person. You're in there, you spar, you understand you're going to both spar hard. No one wants to get pasted. There's going to be a bit of ego there, and that's okay. The problem starts to be when you're just sparring 2 or 3 times a week for the fucking sake of sparring twice, 2 or 3 times a week. I don't really get that. That's kind of like, that's not, why the fuck are you doing that? You know what I mean? And then you're going to be surprised that it turns into a real fight for no reason. Like, if you there's two of you in the cage and you're in there, 3 5s, and you're going to go hard, there might be egos and there might be things, but at least there's a purpose to it. You know what I mean? There's a very clear purpose to it. So you have to think about why you're sparring. JLA says, did you ever train or help any city kickboxing athletes before Addisonia joined the UFC middleweight division? Would you help any of them besides Volkanovski, who is only part time and lives in the Gong too? Um, I knew, but it, like, there's no like connection there, like, to it. You know what I mean? Um, and they've got a whole fucking team of people. Like, there's no need for me to be there, and there's no, like, I don't have like that relationship with anyone there. Volkanovski I've known since he's a kid, and I've known Joe forever. So that situation from there, but that's like not a situation where I'm like, oh, this or that or the other. It's just like no relationship there. Like, there's gyms even closer, like Daniel Kelly, for instance. He's in Melbourne, but I don't have that relationship. Like, and also, like, there's no need for them to go, um, like, come and train with us. Like, there's no, like, you know what I mean. Like, they don't need my help. That's the easiest fucking way for me to put it. There's a lot of good teams and coaches in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and in obviously New Zealand that they're fine without me. You know what I mean? Um, the conscientious objector says, Coach, what do you think about Colby's claims that Usman is on EPO? From the conscientious objector. I don't know, man. Like, look, a lot of the athletes are on stuff that's 100% true. I'm not saying Usman is, but a lot of them are. Um, it, oh, You know what I mean? Unless the guy pisses hot and he's not going to, like, what are you going to say on it? Bo says Fab Jira's chin is nuts. Yes, it is. Conscious Objector says, how bad is the PD probably in MMA? It's fucking bad, dude. It's super bad. Super bad. 1 billion% bad. Conscientious Objector says Jiri is future champ. He could be. He could be. Koznowski says, I think that judges should have earplugs in, especially in the Apex, especially how the commentators feel like live judging the fights and yelling out the scoring. Yeah, I agree with that as well. That's why, like, I do agree. I do agree. Just for people to understand this, right? I do agree that the judging system, they can always improve it. I do agree that it's probably not the best for MMA, especially in the UFC. But I don't agree with everyone shitting on the judges and the refs, right? And like, it's almost like it should, like, that's what I'm saying. So it shouldn't come down to the judge's decision that the fighters don't get fucking paid, and then people blaming it on the judges. The judges, their job is fucking hard enough as it is, and the fighters should just get paid. You know what I mean? Um, and the judging, yeah, I mean, you can educate judges, you can have different judges, you can do whatever you want, but understand this: you're always going to have the shit decisions. Like I just said to you, like in the Olympics, you can watch it. It's the same thing in combat sports, in non-combat sports. You're gonna have the close shit decisions. In soccer, you have the bad calls that result in a penalty that half the world is not happy with. And that's always going to happen. But all of those athletes get paid. You know what I mean? They get paid regardless. So when you're talking about that, oh, the judges have the right to take away half the guy's pay. No, the judges don't. The judges got nothing to fucking do with how the UFC pay structure is. You know what I mean? Um, the conscientious objector says, should the judges even be cage side or somewhere away from the crowd hype? The problem is that cage side, you do see things different, dude. It's very, very different. Very, very, very fucking different. You also feel the momentum of the fight change a lot of the times. Like, you feel it. You can see the guy. You see the guy's hurt. You got to also understand this is also a sport where people are quick to criticize, but don't understand the position that the people that those judges are in. I'm not sticking up for him. I'm not sticking up for him. If you ask me again, the Barber and Maverick fight, who won that? It was the wrong fucking call. My opinion was the wrong call. Right? I agree with all that shit. Right? I'm not sitting there, but I'm just saying to you, be real with what's happening. You've never been a judge. You don't know what it's like. You've probably never even been cage side, like right next to the cage. So you don't understand what you're seeing. Now, if you said to me, maybe they should have those three judges, and then they should have another three judges that are watching from a screen, and then the combination of all of those makes okay. That's fine. That's a different thing. I get that as well. But I'm saying to you, you see things cage side that you don't see on TV. You don't see it. You don't hear some shots. You hear them, and you know that hurt that person. You know what I mean? And some shots, you don't you don't see them the same. You know what I mean? It's different, dude. You also see someone get taken down, and when you're watching on TV, you don't get the griminess of the situation, and if you're right there next to him and you see the guy takes the guy down, and you realize this guy's got nothing for him anymore. You know what I mean? He's got nothing for him. Um, but he's holding him down, he's manhandling him. On TV might look like the person is just laying on top or whatever, da da da. But when you're there and you're live, you're like, no, this guy's broken this other dude. This guy wants nothing more to do with this fight. A lot of these things happen when you're right next to the cage, listening to it, watching it, listening to things. Like, you can hear stuff, you can hear the fighters, like you can hear people get taken down and capitulate. You hear people get taken down and go, like, I'm fucked, I'm done. And judges can hear that, can see that. There's an interaction that's occurring between these two people, and so you don't get that outside of the being cage side. So yeah. Jordan Fadner says, I like the new picture captions because it is just you looking happily at two shirtless dudes with no other context. Sorry, Jordan, can you explain that? I don't get exactly what you mean. Koznowski says, I think the judges should have earplugs in, especially like yep, so you said that already. Um, Shane Fernandez says, Coach, add his spitting facts, people. Thank you, sir. I tried to. Jacob Birdsong says, Showtime seems to be playing a nice hand in promoting Bellator and hosting sideshow style matches like Woodley versus Paul, a really major stage to get people like McKee into the minds of casual fans. Yeah, I mean, it's only going to be good for everyone if the UFC has more competition, I think, you know. Ibrahim Ali says, hey, coach, if Khabib fought someone like Gilbert at 170, will he be able to nullify his BJJ or will it be a stand-up fight? I don't know. You know what I mean? I really don't know. Now, the jiu-jitsu difference, not MMA grappling, right? But the jiu-jitsu difference between someone like Burns, and Khabib is big. Like if Khabib was to have a grappling match, depends on the rule set as well. But the jiu-jitsu difference is big, man. What that does in MMA, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know because Khabib is good at getting into good positions. He's smart, he's knowledgeable on the ground, and he can land big fucking shots. But again, at 170, fucking Burns doesn't even look like the same person that he was at lightweight, you know? So again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Burns tends to be a better jiu-jitsu guy off the top as well. So that's a bit of a problem as well. Um, but from memory, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong here. I'm just trying to think of the high level jiu-jitsu guys that Khabib has faced in his career. And I don't know if any come to mind like that off the top of my head. Let me just, like Gleason is a guy that had very good jiu-jitsu and wrestling, etc. And Khabib struggled with him, you know. So I don't know how he'd do against the Burns or someone like that. And Khabib's very, very good, but I'm just trying to think here. Let me see. I don't think he has faced anyone with comparable jiu-jitsu to Burns. Do you know what I mean? That's and going up a weight division with the physicality, I don't know. I don't know. Pig Thug says, "Hey, sup, big sexy." Thank you, sir. Right back at you. Stainless Stove says, "You're right about can't blame people on thinking the UFC." Sorry, just the thing just jumped. You're right. Can't blame people on the UFC thinking the on. Oh, okay. You're right about can't blame people on thinking the UFC is a blood sport, but the UFC is pretty mainstream. I expect Australian schools are more concerned with being sued. Um, yeah, I think they're two separate things though, but they're more concerned about being sued because um, it's not mainstream. You get what I mean? I think the UFC still, while it's mainstream, like people are aware of it, like um, it's not mainstream where like you play it at school. You know what I mean? That's mainstream. You know, like anyone growing up here has touched a rugby league ball. My daughter has touched a rugby league ball already. Not like that. It's not. It isn't mainstream like that. You know, it's mainstream enough that you can go watch it at pubs and everything and da 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 da. But it's not. And I don't think. And the UFC is mainstream because the UFC is a massive marketing machine, and they're able to do it, and they're very smart with how they do it, and they've done a fantastic job doing it. Um, so yeah, like, and the litigation in the US system is way worse than Australia, and they still have wrestling in their school system. JLA says, thanks, Fab, for answering the city kickboxing question. Was honest with curiosity. What do you think of having UFC weight classes every 10 pounds, 155, 165, 175, health, excitement, etc.? I think from a health perspective, it's going to be the same. People are still going to try and cut. You know, they're not going to not cut. They're still going to try and cut. Um, it gives people different options, but people it might give you a different option, but there's still guys going to have to cut. But I like the idea of having more weight divisions. Having said that, though, I think there has to be more fighters. There has to be more fighters across more weight divisions, across more promotions to really be able to have the depth of talent in those divisions. Otherwise, you're still going to have the same guys. Like, you know what I mean? Fighting 170 guys will fight 155 and 165. Guys will fight 165 and 175. Guys will fight 175 and 185. That's what I think. You need more talent still. You still need more people. Stainless Stove says, with time, I do think over time, this generation and growth of MMA Australian schools will encourage it. Maybe. The conscientious objector says, I've been cage sides for dozens of high-level Muay Thai at fights at Lumpini, and the hype is unreal. It's crazy, eh? Jacob Birdsong says, is there any way fighters can compete 3-4 times a year without doping to recover from constant injury as a total layman? Seeing, for example, Cerrone's record seems too superhuman to be totally natty. Lost a lot of fights, though, too, Cerrone. Lost a lot of fights. So I don't know. Competing 3 or 4 times a year is not the problem. The problem would also be like the weight cut, the training camps for it, and blah blah blah. So if you fought and you did well, and then you on to the next one, then cool. I think the thing with Cerrone is that, let me pull up Cerrone. Like he's a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. He's a good solid fighter, but like he's got a massive following because he fights. He puts on exciting fights. But he's also lost a bunch of fights. Like he's lost a lot of fights. I don't think that the career necessarily was as I don't think it was focused. And this is nothing. This is not even I'm just bringing up his record. This is not even a criticism, right? Because people tune in to watch him, and I think he fought for fighting, but I don't think he went all in with saying, I'm after that belt. You know what I mean? I'm just looking at his record, and he's got some good wins, he's got some good losses, he's got some good fights, he's got some bad fights, and I think he just in there fighting exciting fights, likes to fight, and I think that's also a way of dealing with the pressure. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know necessarily if that means it's it's natural or not, you know what I mean? Pip Dennison says, what's the funniest thing you've ever heard one fighter say to the other in the heat of battle? But I will say, Jacob Birdsong, sorry, going back to you, fighting too many times, if you're at a high level and if Cerrone was beating the shit out of everyone and fighting the way that he was fighting, I'd say to you 1000% it's not natural. Pip Dennison says, what's the funniest thing you've ever heard one fighter say to the other in the heat of battle? Like live, me being there, not much, but Nate Diaz has always got shit. He's always saying, man, I always think about the fight when Nick Diaz fought Robbie Lawler and he walked in and he's like, "Stock them, bitch." And he's like, I was showing that to my wife the other day and she was fucking laughing. Yeah, like that was funny. The conscientious objector says, how effective have USADA been during the pandemic? Like, how effective were they without the pandemic? Look back and look at who was the last guy that actually caught, was a big name, like how long ago was that? Voji says, Fab, have you ever been to South Africa? No, I've been to North Africa, I've been to Morocco, but I've never been to South Africa. It's on my to-do list. Stainless Stove says, social media fighters get venomous hate. My theory is that people love watching fighting and seeing wins as watching the success they dream. When people lose, they see the loser a mirror of their failures. It's something like that, man. I tell you, that's for sure, man. People don't understand. And also, people want fairy tales, dude. I think people People don't get that like losing is a part of life, and also the fact that you're not going to win all the time. That's just a fucking given, my friend. Jacob says part of the reason people think MMA is a blood sport comes from the chaos and immaturity that emanates from Dana White's Crimson Head. I think the way that it is marketed, like it's good for the masses, but definitely there is an element of truth to what you're saying, sir. Jacob says, I can't think of another major sports organization that has near as many petty feuds and public spats with with its athletes. No, there isn't, dude. There isn't. And not only that, like the stuff, people go like, I want to see fighters beat themselves. So that's great. I like it when they do this or when they do that and they're not sanctioned. And I think like, but there's a reason for that, dude. So I kind of like my freedom of speech ends where your human rights begin. You know what I mean? If I don't like Asian people, I can't just run around saying to people, "Hey man, I don't fucking like Asian people, so fuck them, man. Send them back home." I say this, my wife and my daughters are Asian. Okay, so before people go, he hates Asians. That's why I picked. I was like, no, I got to pick one right, perfect. So you can't just. I don't. There's a reason why you can't just be yourself. There's a reason why that I don't want to hear your fucking. When we're going back to transgender questions, I don't give a fuck about your opinions on it, nor should you give a fuck about my opinions. Like talking about, like, if you want to talk about just your opinions and who you are, and I want to speak my mind, then do that with your friends and family, especially when I think like you're in a public position where you can be affecting people. Not that I am, but like a lot of the fighters and shit and everything. I think like people talk a lot about like say Conor now, and I feel in a way I kind of feel sorry for Conor. People talk about Conor now, and I think like the shit he was doing before the Khabib fight. Before, like I'm talking about before the Khabib fight, not just a trolley through the window, but before. All of that shit is antisocial behavior, man. All of that shit is bullying. All of that shit is disgusting fucking behavior that that in any other setting, you'd be shunned. But because he's won fights and he's won money, people are like okay with it. Now he's losing. Right now he's losing, and people are like, "Ooh, I don't like what he's saying," and blah blah blah, because he's fucking losing. If he had won, if he had beat Khabib, people would have been okay with everything that he fucking said. Which to me is like it's past it. And now I actually feel for him because like the same people that were okay now because he's losing, the exact same behavior is not okay. So it's weird. It's a weird thing. Stainless Stove says that's why on social media people express their hate of themselves onto someone else. Yeah, it's different for me. I grew up in a different environment, a different situation, so like a different age as well. So I didn't grow up with social media, so it's weird to me. This shit now, the podcast is still weird to me. Sorry, I'm going to skip a few. Andrew says, "Hey Fab, how is your masters going? Always love the podcast. Thank you, sir. The masters is going slowly but surely, my dear friend. Not a very good student. Joel Forbes is the mullet in the pocket, guys. Put your order in." Khan says, "Coach, what would your advice for young fighters who don't want to get scammed by trainers like Josh Fabia? There are a lot of them in the regional scene compared to pro levels. They're there in the pro levels too." I don't know enough about Josh Fabia. I don't know his situation. I'm not sticking up for him. I don't know the situation at all. One of the things I was going to say is, let's say Josh Fabia wasn't that bad. I don't know. Let's say it wasn't. Maybe he is. I don't fucking know. What happens in this industry as well with social media and everything? If athletes and the rest of them and blah 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 decide that you're shit, they can shun you in the industry pretty fucking quickly and easily and badly. So I don't know how bad he is, to be honest with you. I don't know, but I don't know anything about him. But let's assume also now that you're saying get scammed by trainers, inverted commas, and I think any young guy is susceptible to that. But as you're coming through, I think don't don't make things more complicated than they have to be. You know, I don't really want to say to a young guy, go into MMA early on, blah blah blah. Because my big thing would be start off keeping it simple. You know, so go join a local boxing gym, join a local jiu-jitsu gym, go join a local judo gym or wrestling gym. And you're young, like you're saying a young guy, so I'm assuming 15, 16. And from there, as you start to pick up and compete and whatnot and everything, you'll start to slowly put a team together of people that 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 you want around you, and also you'll start to understand what a good coach is. You know, if you're lucky enough to have a good coach, from there, you're going to find you can go and emulate that with another boxing person. But it's like having good parental role models and whatnot. They are the people that you model your behavior on. So if you go straight into trying to find MMA coaches, you have no idea what they are. If you have a good judo coach or whatever, you're going to look for that person in your every other discipline that you do. Um, so that's one of that's a big one that I would say, you know. And also, like, I think like attracts like. I think a lot of times, like, you know, people look at fighters or athletes or whatever, and they go, "I can't believe that, you know, at the end of his career, you know, he got fucked over by everyone, and it's so sad. The guy was, you know that everyone ripped him off and da da da." And a lot of the times, dude, a lot of the times, if you're real about shit, you have to look at it and go like, how many guys did this guy fuck over in his career when he was on the way to the top? Why did he get left with shitbags? You know what I mean? And like, don't get me wrong, I understand you're a young guy, you didn't know, you made mistakes, all of that's cool. But the fact remains that you would have fucked people over along the way. You didn't take the guys that necessarily brought you through all the way to the top, you know, all the way up into your 20s, your early 20s or something. You didn't take them on and kept going with them. Went with you moved on, you know, and sometimes you need to, and sometimes you don't, dude. And I would say to you, like, a lot of the times you don't. You know what I mean? A lot of the times you don't. You feel you need to, but a lot of the times you don't. And then you end up with a situation that's been played out a million fucking times. You end up with the scammers. You end up with people that rip you off, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, how many people did you fuck over on the way? If you're going to be really honest, you know, how many people did you fuck over? If a business situation went wrong, you know, and I've been in business situations that didn't go well, but then if you stop and you look at yourself and you go like, did I make the right decisions? Did I was I, you know, what led me to be in business with those people to begin with? You know what I mean? Like, so, um, yeah, a lot of that is on you, man. A lot of that is, yeah, I think, like, I'm a big believer in like attracts like, you know. So I think when you're a young person, you should just keep it simple. Do judo, do wrestling, do do boxing, do, yeah, any of those big competitive sports where you get a chance to really bond with your coach, you get a chance to compete a lot, and see if you even like combat sports, taekwondo, any of those. Because once you understand and you find the right coach in that discipline, which is not as hard as finding, you know, because if you don't like the guy at one taekwondo school, you can go to another one if you like taekwondo. And once you click and you find out this is what a good coach is, and I start to understand this and blah 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 blah, you will look for that in everyone else. Andrew says, thanks, Fab. Love and respect. Right back at you, sir. Roberto Castellano says, what's your process for shaving your head? Shampoo, razor blades in the shower. Daniel El Shahab says, what's up, Fab? What would your walkout music be? Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's so many different songs you could pick. Jacob Birdsong says, Fab, I don't know if you've discussed this, but who are some of your favorite fighters to watch in MMA and other combat sports in general, skills wise or excitement wise? Um, of all time or right now? I of all time, Fedor, Nogueira, Arona, Gomi back in the day, like vintage Gomi was a monster. Um, man, there's so many, man, so many. Fedor for what he did in his time, like in his era, was super impressive. You know, like super impressive. Like in his era, you know, you got to understand what that was. The other thing that I liked was the other guy that I liked was Haritonov, Sergey Haritonov. Always liked him, watching him fight. Daniel Cormier. There's a lot of good fighters, man. Right now, I like Peter Yan a lot. Um, I like watching him fight. I think his skills are really highly developed. He's got a really good boxing background and he applies it really well. So that's probably if I had to just pick him like right now, you know. Um, but yeah. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to be back on Friday. Um, I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, guys, and big hugs to everyone. And take care of yourselves. Thank you very much.